Well, thank you very much for having me here. My name is Ivana Miño, and I'll be hosting today's meeting. So, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all, and thank you for joining us here today. In this workshop, Better Places to Live, Better Places to Visit, organized in the aim to generate a dialogue between dealing with culture, society, and tourism, between the cultural and the tourism private and public stakeholders, to develop the Barcelona Declaration of Tourism and Cultural Heritage. Per anar avançant, us dono informació pràctica sobre la jornada d'avui. Hi ha traducció simultània al castellà, al català i a l'anglès. Trobareu el programa dins la llibreta que us han lliurat a l'entrada. A Twitter hem creat el següent hashtag, Places to Live and Visit. We'd love to make sure that we address your most important points today. To this end, we'll be using a tool that allows you to share your opinion by sending your votes in via live polls. You'll just need to, 1, take out your smartphone and open your browser. 2, go to slido.com, slido.com, and enter the event code, #Better Places to Live and Visit. 3, during each session, you can vote the most relevant topics or keywords according to you. And 4, at the end of each session, a rapporteur will report on the results of your votes. Did you understand? Okay, great. Let's proceed then. I també tenim el plaer de comptar amb Cristina Massó, Ariadna Gavarda i Lluís Prats de la Universitat de Girona, que faran de relators durant les taules rodones, ajudant-nos a recollir els punts més destacats de la jornada. I'd now like to welcome on stage Mrs. Anne Grady. Could you please? Oh, thank you. We are starting this session on cultural heritage with Mrs. Grady from the European Commission, an expert working in the Cultural Policy Unit of the Directorate General for Education and Culture. When you're ready.
Thank you. So many thanks for this kind invitation to address this important workshop, which is thought-provoking and very well timed under the European Year of Cultural Heritage. In the short time allotted, I'll go through the European Year and also sustainable cultural tourism. But just to mention, I arrived early here this morning, very, very early, and I took an opportunity to have a look at the museum. And I urge you all to have a look at this wonderful, amazing museum, which is a prime example of cultural heritage in practice. So an outline of my presentation. I'll briefly talk about the European Year of Cultural Heritage, the what, the why, the where, the target and implementation, and the events and sustainable cultural tourism. And there may not be an opportunity for questions and answers, but I'm here for the day if anybody wants to discuss any particular point. So European years in general, the phenomenon that's been going on for some time. And what they are is to raise awareness, to encourage debate and dialogue, what we're doing here today, and to have a lasting legacy, such as the Barcelona Declaration. And we've heard this morning from the wonderful speakers about what is cultural heritage. And often what is overlooked, and it has been mentioned this morning, is intangible cultural heritage, the skills, the knowledge, the traditions, and the festivals. And this is what we're going to address during the Year of Cultural Heritage. And why a Year of Cultural Heritage? Well, under the objectives, it's to encourage the sharing and appreciation of Europe's wonderful cultural heritage as a shared resource, to raise awareness of common history and values, and to reinforce a sense of belonging to Europe. And very important for this workshop today, the protection, safeguarding, the reuse, enhancement, the valorisation and the promotion of Europe's cultural heritage. So obviously, the year is taking place all throughout Europe, across Europe, and EU delegations are promoting the year outside the EU. At the moment, there are 200 events at European level and 8,000 events taking place at national level. And there are more planned and in the pipeline. This is growing. The target audience, of course, children and young people, the wider public, cultural heritage professionals, and all curious people. And I'm delighted that the emphasis is on young people, because what we tend to forget, young people are our future guardians of cultural heritage. They're our future protectors. So how is the year managed and implemented? Well, it's a decentralised initiative, and it's managed by national coordinators appointed by the member states, who really are a very enthusiastic and lively bunch. There's a joint effort of the European institutions, and DG EAC is very much in the lead. And we're working with other Directorate generals, such as DG Grow, and I have a colleague here from DG Grow. And there's a focus on tourism, education, regional development, and we've talked about social cohesion this morning, the environment, research, and audiovisual policy. And of note, on the legal basis for the European Year of Cultural Heritage, the word tourism appears 6 times in the legal basis. The Commission is assisted by a committee of stakeholders comprising 35 representative organisations who are also very, very dedicated to the European Year, and international organisations such as UNESCO and the Council of Europe are very closely associated with the year. Now, we've talked about legacy, and there are 10 European initiatives to ensure there will be a legacy for the year. And the one of relevance here, of course, is tourism and heritage, responsible and sustainable tourism around cultural heritage. And we talk about sustainability and we talk about tourism, and it's a balancing act. Sustainable tourism suggests a state that can be maintained and perhaps even unchanging, and tourism implies constant adaptation to consumer demands. So we are balancing this relationship. And the European Commission established an open method of coordination working group of member states. And there are 23 member states in the working group, plus Iceland. And this is what we're doing. We're mapping methods and tools to make cultural heritage of Europe accessible to and interoperable with a sustainable system of tourism promotion and marketing. We are and have examined case studies and their impact on local communities. We have a 6th meeting next week and our final meeting in September, and our deliberations will be presented at the ECTN conference in Pathos in October 2018. And I'm glad to say that NECSToUR will present the Barcelona Declaration at our next meeting next week. We're also liaising with DG Grow, and I know my colleague will talk about the different initiatives, COSME, the UNESCO World Heritage Journeys, and Eden. And that's later in the day. I think it's in the afternoon, actually. And we're liaising with the Council of Europe on cultural routes as well, along with DG Regio. And the kick-off meeting was very, very recent in relation to that. It was in March. And of course, there's the European Heritage Days, which we're going to work with for the European Year of Cultural Heritage. And that comprises 70,000 events across Europe. So sustainable cultural tourism, and I've put a little green heart in the corner there because this is the heart, this is the kernel of what we're talking about. And these are the events that are, have taken place and are taking place during the year. And just to finish up my presentation, we have a communication campaign, and I suggest that you have a look at our website, and this presentation will be circulated. Have a look at the website and sign up to our newsletter as well, so you can be kept informed of what's happening during the European year. So thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation to speak at the conference.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Grady. I'd like to apologize because I gave you the wrong code for the event. It's not better places to live and visit, it's places to live and visit. Please feel free to write your comments in there. So, next we're going to receive Mr. DeBrine on stage. Mr. DeBrine. Oh, thank you. Mr. DeBrine is the coordinator of the program on World Heritage and Sustainable Tourism of the UNESCO. When you're ready.
Thank you. Well, good morning everyone, distinguished guests, friends, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It is a real pleasure to be with you here today, and I just can't believe how much I love the title of this conference. This idea of better places to live and better places to visit really captures, I think, so many things that we're dealing with in terms of cultural heritage and tourism. So let me begin first by thanking the organizers, the government of Catalonia Tourism Board. Thank you, Patrick, for inviting me to this very important meeting. And of course, thanks to NECSToUR for organizing this important event and for the generous hospitality. In designating 2018 as the European Year for Cultural Heritage, the EU aimed to encourage more people to discover and engage with Europe's cultural heritage and to reinforce a sense of belonging to a common European space. When we think of cultural heritage, we often think of preservation, excavation, the restoration of old things. But of course, it's much, much more than that. Cultural heritage is the full range of our inherited traditions, our practices, expressions, representations, monuments, objects. It's our songs, it's our dances, it's our food and language, and how we communicate and identify ourselves are so important and as equally important as historical buildings and archaeological sites. Cultural heritage is the range of contemporary activities, meanings, and behaviors that shape us into who we are. It is also dynamic in nature and changing as people and communities interact and transmit their knowledge, their cultures, and their practices. And it's simultaneously local and global when shared. It can be a platform for intercultural dialogue and the potential basis for economic development through tourism. With over 350 World Cultural Heritage Sites across Europe, here in the beautiful city of Barcelona, we can see Gaudi's masterpieces that testify to his creative genius. These monuments represent an eclectic as well as a very personal style, which was given free rein in the design of gardens, sculptures, and all the decorative arts, as well as architecture, and of course, the iconic Sagrada Familia. And more we're witnessing widespread community participation in cultural heritage activities and increased awareness of the importance of heritage in our daily lives. For UNESCO, the European Year of Cultural Heritage is an opportunity to focus on the role of tourism can play in protecting, safeguarding, and promoting cultural heritage. Over the past 2 years, there have been a number of significant milestones that have impacted on sustainable tourism development. These include, for UNESCO, a policy that was adopted in 2015 by the World Heritage Committee and the General Assembly of State Parties to the World Heritage Convention on the integration of a sustainable development perspective into the process of the World Heritage Convention, which allows the state parties, practitioners, institutions, communities, and networks to really harness the potential of World Heritage properties and heritage in general to contribute to sustainable development. In December last year, UNWTO and UNESCO hosted a global conference on culture and tourism, where 30 ministers and vice ministers of tourism and culture and 800 participants from 70 countries reaffirmed their commitment to strengthen the synergies between tourism and culture, and to advance the contribution of cultural tourism in the 2030 Agenda on Sustainable Development. They recognize that a sustainable approach with buy-in from all stakeholders is crucial to cultural tourism, peace building, and heritage protection, and signed the Muscat Declaration on Tourism and Culture, Fostering Sustainable Development. UNESCO advocates an approach to tourism that contributes to overall visitor management and planning by providing policy guidance and strategies for site presentation, promotion, based on best practice that takes a sustainable approach by involving both conservation and tourism stakeholders in the planning and management of the destinations. I think everybody knows UNESCO likes lists. We have the World Heritage List. We have the Intangible Cultural Heritage List. And we like stories. But more importantly, we understand the connection between tourism and conservation, and that is our starting point. Tourism is also an important component of urban generation strategies. UNESCO is working to advance the role of culture in this context, including by supporting strategies that target the revitalization of public spaces, the rehabilitation of declining industrial areas, and the revitalization of historic centers. The recommendations of the UNESCO Global Report, Culture, Urban Future, the first policy framework document to explore the role of culture for sustainable urban development, calls for an integration of the conservation and safeguarding of cultural urban heritage in all of its forms into a people-centered urban regeneration strategy to enhance the livability of cities while respecting their identities. And I think Barcelona probably encompasses this very, very, very well. The report also demonstrates how culture-based strategies can be employed to enhance the resilience of cities, ranging from reinforcing the structure of built heritage in the face of future climate change impacts to implementing heritage and art programs for citizens in the context of post-disaster regeneration. Likewise, the regeneration of green areas within and around cities can provide a buffer of resilience. Stakeholder engagement is, of course, essential to all these strategies. Increasing the capacity of local communities to participate in the planning and management of tourism has a huge potential to encourage widespread community participation in the raising awareness across borders. When established on cultural and social principles, tourism represents a resource for innovation, creativity, small business creation, and tourism products and service development. But we all know too well the dangers of mismanaged tourism on the environment and on communities. Our challenge, of course, which is being echoed by other speakers, is a balanced approach to tourism, to balance the benefits with the risks, and that will require cooperation amongst all the stakeholders and a far-reaching interdisciplinary approach. It will also require increased investment in cultural heritage and urban regeneration. Cultural heritage assets, which are broadly defined as assets held and maintained principally for their contribution to knowledge and culture. Museums, galleries, this wonderful museum we're here in today represents a qualifying part of the wealth of nations. From an economic standpoint, heritage assets embody, preserve, and generate cultural value over and above their economic intrinsic value. And they contribute to a large ecosystem of productive activities centered on their protection, preservation, and use by the public. But a significant share of world heritage is today severely jeopardized. In some developed economies, adverse fiscal conditions are tightening public resources devoted to heritage asset preservation and management. In some quarters hit by war and terrorism, iconic sites have been attacked and devastated, with dramatic consequences on inbound tourism flows and countries' economic prospects. So we need to explore new ways to encourage managers, institutional investors, and policymakers to position cultural heritage as an investable asset class for financial investors, for conservation and regeneration. Innovation will be the key. Next month, UNESCO will launch a new initiative jointly funded by the European Union and in partnership with National Geographic that will showcase the European Union's unique cultural heritage and support sustainable tourism development. We're very thankful to the European Commission and DG Grow for the support for this new and I think innovative project. We refer to it as the World Heritage Journeys of the European Union, and it's a unique travel platform featuring 34 World Heritage Sites in 19 countries across Europe. And the genesis of this project actually was in the European Parliament, where they felt perhaps that the member states of the EU weren't doing enough with the UNESCO label to spur and develop sustainable tourism development across the EU. And it's not focusing on Barcelona, I'm sorry to say, or Florence or Venice, but the hidden gems of Europe. The sites perhaps that need more investment and need more visitors. So the idea behind this is to really look at the World Heritage sites, not solely as a site, but within a larger destination. And within this platform, we're curating these destinations to encourage people to stay longer, to spend more time, to not just see the site, but perhaps visit a museum, go to a neighboring town, eat in a local restaurant, and meet the people. This idea is to really provide engaging stories, because perhaps more than lists, UNESCO likes stories and narratives, because they tell the story of heritage and why a site is listed on the World Heritage List. For instance, why is Barcelona on the World Heritage List? There's a story behind that. There's a narrative behind that. And it's interesting from a tourism point of view. So we know that travel can foster intercultural exchange. We know travel can foster intercultural dialogue. We have over, Isabel, 1.2 billion people now crossing international borders. We have more opportunities than ever to break down these barriers that divide us. By showcasing and sharing good practice approaches, we can promote and recognize and incentivize sustainable development at and around World Heritage Sites, cooperate across borders and between sites, and most importantly, achieve the conservation goals and regeneration challenges that we are trusted to uphold. So with that, I'd like to thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. DeBrine. Thank you very much.